Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on the show today. We're at Fort Gibson Lake, a very well-known bass fishing lake, but what it's not as known for is crappie fishing. It's one of the best crappie lakes in Oklahoma. Today we're going to be shooting docks with some Bobby Garland plastic, shooting it way up under there, trying to catch some big slab crappie. Fox Sports Outdoors is on the air right now.
You're watching the only program with weekly fishing reports and real-time outdoor news from the Southwest region. This is Fox Sports Outdoors.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show today. I'm Andrew Upshaw. A little bit about me, I'm a big-time bass fisherman. I fished the FLW Tour, have for quite a few years now. But today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be crappie fishing. Now, I've fished a lot of lakes in Oklahoma now. I've been to Fort Gibson quite a few times, but I've never crappie fished on Fort Gibson, at least out of a boat. So today we're going to give you a really unique perspective from a bass fisherman's point of view of fishing for crappie by dock shooting. Now, I dock shoot a lot on the bass tour. I actually think it's a very effective technique for bass fishing, but in this situation I'm going to be fishing for crappie. Fort Gibson is about an hour southeast of Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's really easy to get to and a lot of really good ramps. It's known for bass fishing, white bass fishing, and crappie fishing. Also, we'll have weekly fishing reports from your local region from our insider reporters. In the meantime, I'm going to get the Z21 launched in the water, get to fishing. While I do that, let's toss it back to FSN Studios for your weekend planner.
The Salunar tables are forecasting fair game fish activity for both days this weekend. Peak morning fishing times are expected to begin at 8:29 a.m. on Saturday and 9:18 on Sunday. And this weekend could also be a good opportunity for night fishing, with the best evening times taking place shortly after nightfall. The sun will rise at 6:26 and set at 8:38. And skies will feature a moon that is 36% illuminated. Now, let's get you back to the lake.
One thing Fort Gibson is known for is its shad population. It has a ton of shad on the lake, which means the crappie are going to eat a lot more shad than typical. So my baits are going to really resemble the shad. So we're going to probably start out with, like a 2-inch slab slayer and bone white chartreuse. I always like to have a little chartreuse in my bait if I can. If that doesn't work, probably go to a baby shad swimmer. And last case scenario, I'm going to show you exactly how that new crappie shooter shoots with dock shooter pull tab. So stay tuned.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Lew's. Feel the difference. Gene LaRue and Bobby Garland. We know bass and crappie from heads to tails. Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, Alabama. Plan your fishing vacation and catch the details at orangebeach.com/fishing. And by Glacier Glove. Stay outdoors longer with our gloves, hats, and shades.
Oh, I got one. Ooh, it's actually a crappie. Look at that. Ooh. I got one. What do I got? It's got to be a bass. Yeah, a little bass. Well, you can't take a bass fisherman crappie fishing without catching a bass every once in a while. So I started out with a 16th ounce jig head and actually switched. I noticed my bait was falling a little bit too fast. And one of the big key things whenever you're crappie fishing is you want your bait to really slowly glide down. You don't want something that's just going to drop like a rock. So I changed to a really small dock shooter head by Crappie Pro. It's a blue head, and I'm throwing a 2-inch slab slayer. Oh, I got one. Ooh, it's actually a crappie. Look at that. Oh. So, skipped up under there, shot up under there with that same white 2-inch slab slayer with the dock shooter head. Not a real big crappie, but might have figured something out. So what I was looking at was, I'm looking at the end of this dock. So it's the main end of the dock. And this is a lot of times where the deepest and most oxygen is, or deepest water most oxygen is towards the end of the dock. Let me get this fish back there real quick. whenever you start talking about skipping docks or shooting docks with a rod, you want something that's anywhere between 6.5 foot. This happens to be this Wally Marshall speed shooter. It's a combo, has a 100 size reel on here. Honestly, it's extremely affordable. I think it retails for like $59.99. But you want something around this range, medium light, but with some backbone to it. You want to be able, when you grab that bait, to shoot it up under there. As you can see, mostly the tip is bending, but a lot of the rod is still straight. And what that's going to do is still give you the backbone and the bow and arrow idea to where it's going to shoot extremely far up under there, but when it does, you can still set the hook and catch those fish. And I'm only throwing 6-pound line. You know, I'm a big believer in throwing 6-pound line. It's a 6-pound fluorocarbon. It sinks a little bit faster and it's extremely sensitive.
Hi folks, this week's Lone Star Lakes is brought to you once again by the good folks at Fiberworks Marine Collision, where they'll get you back out on the water, good as new, as fast as they possibly can. If you've had a small accident or a big one, check out Fiberworks Marine Collision. Now this week we're going to start on Fayette County because summertime fishing is hot and the bass will move offshore to the structure, humps, ridges, ledges, things like that. Use your deep working baits like deep diving crankbaits, your Carolina rigs, your A-rigs, and even your flutter spoons over this deep structure to catch your bass. Be sure and keep a topwater popper or a tiny torpedo handy because these fish can come up to the surface in school as well. For crappie, we're seeing a lot of good catches out of Toledo Bend in the standard chicken coop area and anywhere they have a lot of brush. You'll drop down about 25 feet, but be sure and look for a thermocline before you start fishing. That'll be a line on your graph at about 15 to 25 feet. You'll want to stay above that to catch your crappie on Toledo Bend. That's this week's Lone Star Lakes, brought to you once again by the good folks at Fiberworks Marine Collision, when good enough just isn't good enough.
We'll be right back in just a moment. First, though, we want to pass along some of your big catch of the week photos. These entries didn't win, but we still wanted to share some of the great fish catches from around the area. Be sure to stick around for this week's winner at the end of today's show. We're coming right back.
There's one. Oh, there we go. It's a little better one. There's one. Oh, there we go. It's a little better one. So tell you what we did here is we moved out to the main lake and got out of the backs of some pockets and stuff. We were kind of fishing deep in some marinas. It was really hot and kind of muggy, caught a couple. Decided to pull out here on the main lake and fish channel swings. And the thing is we're fishing channel swing banks with a little bit of wind, a little bit of current, and fishing the docks that are associated to them. But we came up on this one particular dock and it says, do not tie off to my dock for fishing. And we look inside and there's fish hangers, there's ropes, there's everything like that inside. And that should be the telltale sign when you're out here dock skipping it, that's gonna have a lot of brush and it's gonna have a lot of timber and just stuff in the water. And it's a completely covered dock, as you see right here. The other big key thing that we did, here, let me throw this fish back real fast. The other big thing we did is we changed colors up. So, you know, we started the day with a 16th ounce jig head and we ended up going to a 1/32 and putting a monkey milk colored minnow minder. The minnow minder has a split tail, and I was sitting there noticing, so this is something you can do on your favorite lake. I started looking at the shad in the water, and there's an abundance of shad on this lake. And almost every shad that I saw looked almost transparent in the water. And I've been throwing pearl white, and I like throwing white around docks, but in this particular case, the sun is so high, we switched to this monkey milk color, and that transparent body style that this minnow minder has, actually I feel like attracted more fish and got us more bites. I think in the last 20 or so minutes I've had 6 or 7 bites throwing this monkey milk color, and it's paying attention to little small clues when you're out here skipping docks or any type of fishing. It's paying attention to what the fish are eating. Right now, if you look in the water, the shad are very transparent, and that's important when you're targeting any type of game fish, especially crappie around docks.
Hey, if you get nothing else from this report, do remember one thing: 10 feet. That seems to be the magical depth across the state of Oklahoma at this time for catching both bass and crappie. Zach North caught this beautiful largemouth at Lake Keystone. He and Bobby Myers were targeting the large flat rock shorelines, fishing soft plastics from there out to about the first break, 6 to 10 foot of water, caught a number of good, nice fish. Now, good colors this time of year, green pumpkin variations, and great lure choices are any of the worms in that 8 to 10 inch range. Think about those for bass at this time in Oklahoma. As far as the crappie, LaRue lure designer George Tolson caught them at 10 feet at Lake Hudson. Now, he was experimenting with a brand new Bobby Garland bait called the Slab Hunter Minnow. Fishing brush piles, 10 foot of water, caught a lot of quality crappie. Sometimes he was casting and reeling it back in, sometimes he was just vertical jigging it in that brush. He said, but most of the fish came right close to the bottom. Crappie colors this time of year, monkey milk is doing really well in the clearer waters across the state, and then anything with the chartreuse variations. 1/8 ounce head, 16th ounce head, put it right down in the brush pile so you can catch them. Bass and crappie in Oklahoma, they're biting, you can catch them, but you can't catch them if you don't go.
Here we go. So it's not the slab as before. I've hooked 2 really big ones thrown up in there. Still a nice little 10, 11 inch fish, nothing too bad. I made a change to a little bit lighter jig head. So this is the 48th ounce Crappie Pro Head Doctor head, and the reason is because I ran out of the other ones. That's the one thing you got to make sure you have when you come out here and you're shooting docks, especially somebody that's a beginner. Make sure you have a couple packs of the heads that you want to use or learn with or practice with, because you're more than likely going to hang up a bunch on ropes or brush piles, because I mean you're fishing a true open hook. And that's important when you're out here crappie fishing, is to make sure you have enough baits. In this case, I got plenty of minnow minders, but not nearly enough Crappie Pro jig heads, so I changed sizes. Obviously, it doesn't matter too much because I just put another crappie in the boat. But lesson learned on my part is to make sure you have enough jig heads in the boat. I'm gonna catch me another one real quick.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by MotorGuide's new wireless and easy-to-use XI3. XI batteries, powering the world forward. WAYPOINT Marine, the Gulf Coast's leading saltwater boating specialist. And Strike King, designed by the pros, fished by you.
There's one. Oh, it's a nice little crappie. That's a little bit better one. Nice little slab right there. You can say that fish really wanted that monkey milk minnow minder. When they're eating it like that, you 100% are throwing the right bait. You know, unlike bass fishing, sometimes in bass fishing, when they eat a bait really deep, it's from one, you didn't feel them whenever they bit it, or two, they just ate it the right, perfect way. In crappie fishing though, if you're throwing the right bait, that thing is in their throat every single time, because they are sucking it in and eating it like it's their food. So you know when you have the exact right color is whenever you're having to dig it out with pliers. But pay attention to that when you're on the water, because it really will help you eliminate colors. You know, earlier we were throwing a pearl white color, and I was getting a lot of bites on it, but they weren't eating it. I mean, they were just toom, toom, toom. I mean, just knocking slack in my line, but not eating it. In this case, almost every single time I feel a bite, it's a slab like this one and it's choking it. All right, so I'm gonna show you how this bow and arrow technique works. I wanna put my bait at the first guide, okay? Just like that. And the idea is, here, it was wrapped around my tip. The idea is to pull it back to your reel and allow that bait to shoot off of there. So you want your line level with the water, as you can see there, and you want your finger like a trigger. So whenever you release your bait, you wanna release your finger to shoot it back up under there, just like that. And then you just want it to fall on slack line. And most of those fish are eating it on a slack line. And hop it up a couple times. I don't know if that was a very good shot, but we're gonna find out here in a second.
Hey friends, Cajun Phil here with the Fox Sports Southwest Louisiana Fishing Report. I tell you what, friends, the weather's determined whether we catching fish or not. It looks like anytime there's a hard southwest wind, fishing is slow. The guides are out there struggling, trying to catch fish here or there. They come in with a decent fish at the end of the day, but I tell you what, you get a south wind or a southeast wind or an east wind, it's on. Matter of fact, just yesterday, Captain Kevin and Captain Carlos caught no wind whatsoever. What did they do? They went to the close-in rigs offshore, and yes, indeed, they hammered them. They not only caught a limit of great big speckled trout, they had a bunch of mangrove snapper to boot. Man, that is awesome. Speak about going offshore. If you want a good offshore trip right now, Venice, Louisiana is the place to go. Talk to Josh Howard. He's catching lots of, anybody goes out wants snapper, getting a limit every day. They're catching big tuna, a few amberjacks, a few wahoo. Right now, Venice is pretty good. Inshore, Captain Mike Finette's catching big old bull reds on top waters and plastic. The only freshwater report we got this week comes from Toledo Bend. Joe Johnson said you want to catch bass on Toledo Bend, early morning, late afternoon, or nighttime. Spinner baits, buzz baits at the top water.
One thing about this little bit lighter jig head is I'm having to fish a lot slower than I was with the 32nd ounce, which is fine because in crappie fishing you want to fish slow anyway. There's one. Oh, it's a nice little crappie. There we go. So we switched docks up, kind of figured out what we're looking for. God, look how good that thing's stuck. Like I can't push it out. There we go, finally. So we switched up things a little bit, switched docks up, found that dock earlier that had a lot of crappie on it, and kind of got on a little pattern. I felt like we started looking for docks that were covered, and I know that sounds super silly, but like there's always certain docks that these fish are going to be on, just like bass. Once you figure out the type of dock that these fish are on, you can pretty much run that pattern. Today, the docks that we want are completely enclosed. So they don't just have a roof on them and then an open area. They're completely enclosed, and they're really hard shots to get up under there. But when you catch one, it's a good one like this one right here. I get this fish going real fast. And I'll tell you one little thing that's extremely important when you're fishing for these crappie. So I'm shooting this thing on my speed shooter and it twirls. It just twirls down, and it's ever so slightly. Like if you drop it in the water, you're not gonna really see it. It takes you actually casting it out and your bait's just gonna slowly twirl down. And when those fish are suspended 3, 4, 5 foot up under the dock and not quite on the bottom, they're gonna eat it on the drop just about every time. But in case they don't, make sure when it hits the bottom, you pop it up, and what it's gonna do is it's gonna get that twirl going back again once you throw slack back in the line. And that's exactly what happened right there. As soon as I threw slack back in the line, the fish ate it, and it was game on.
You can always watch our latest episode on the front page of our website at foxsportsoutdoors.com. Catch up on past episodes by clicking the archive button and learn about fishing techniques and new gear at our how-to page. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter for new fishing videos every day. Simply search for Fox Sports Outdoors and click the like button on Facebook and follow button on Twitter. And watch a new episode every week on any device by downloading the free WAYPOINT TV app on your phone, tablet, computer, or smart TV. Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Nitro Performance Fishing Boats. Champions aren't born, they're made. Mercury Outboards, go boldly. And Lowrance and the new Hook 2, the world's easiest fish finder.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for the Ask the Pro question, where you get a chance to gain insights from professional anglers. This week, Neil wants to know, should you always use a trailer on a jig? To get the answer, we asked an angler who just won the recent Bassmaster Elite Tournament on the Sabine River, Greg Hackney.
100% of the time I use a trailer on a jig, and the reason why, you can actually get fish to, it's not as easy, but you can actually get fish to hit a jig. You know, when I'm talking about a swim jig or a flipping jig or a football jig. You can get fish to bite it without a trailer, but it's hard to catch them without the trailer. The trailer seems to be what seals the deal on a jig. It's what gets them to engulf the lure. It's hard to stick them without the trailer. There's nothing there. It's basically just a hook and a lead head, and the skirt really has no texture. The skirt is really there for looks. So when you put that trailer on there, it gives that fish something to attack.
Thanks, Greg. If you have a question to ask one of the pros, just visit our website, click on the Ask the Pro link, and let us know. Now let's find out who wins this week's Big Catch of the Week.
This week's winner in the Big Catch of the Week contest is Courtney Schuyler of Belton, Texas, with a 42-inch redfish she caught off the jetties at Matagorda, Texas. To enter the contest, go to foxsportsoutdoors.com, click the Big Catch of the Week box on the right side of the homepage, and follow the instructions to send in your big fish photo. Today on Fort Gibson, we went after big crappie up under docks. To reach those crappie, we were shooting a bait way up under there as far as we could with the new Wally Marshall Speed Shooter. This spinning combo comes in two sizes, a 6-foot and a 6'6". As you can tell with the video, we were catching some nice crappie and this drag sang a lot. The bait was extremely important as well. We were throwing a 1/32 and a 1/24 ounce Head Doctor jig head by Crappie Pro in a blue or a chartreuse color. The bait, I feel like, was probably the most important thing of all. We were throwing a minnow minder. A minnow minder is made by Bobby Garland in the monkey milk color. I was looking down in the water and all I could see was all these shad about 1.5 inches long, and that every one of them was transparent. As soon as we switched to that monkey milk color, which is a little bit more transparent, we started putting big crappie in the boat. But it wouldn't be complete without the dock shooter pull tab. The dock shooter pull tab kept hooks out of my hand, especially since I don't get to crappie fish all the time and I'm not a true professional when it comes to shooting docks, but I do love to do it. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. I hope you learned how to find and catch them here on Fort Gibson. Barry's back next week. For now, I'll see you on the water.